currently, the world has been organized on national values, a scale of national values. But what we need to decide on is a common scale of values that applies to humanity on the whole. There are certain conceptions, certain ideas, of course. Islam, for instance, I'm a liberal, I'm in favor of human rights, I am in favor of promoting women's rights. Let us promote the rights of young girls. Currently in Senegal, there are just as many young girls as young boys who attend primary school, whereas in my family, the women were not allowed to go to school in my childhood. So, if the Muslim countries accept me and my values of tolerance, we are the only country with 95% of Muslims, 5% of Christian, but there is no problem. I am the president of such a country, and I can speak on behalf of my people. I have my conception of Islam, a tolerant Islam. I am a liberal. I'm at the head of international liberals. I come from Senegal. I come from Africa. But it still means that my liberal ideas are being listened, heard, and followed by others. I'm not the Pope of liberalism by any means. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to spread the liberal word, so to speak. But there are all the liberals in the world turned to me because they said this is the solution. A solution coming from the south has to be taken on board. So the more you discuss with Africa in particular, this continent that has been neglected so far, the more you will find adequate, equitable solutions, because our vision will be something quite different. Our contribution will be novel. And I said, I wrote an article in the newspaper where I said, why don't we spread the Keynesian space area to the national area? What about a Europe-Africa area? And let's use European budgets to conduct serious projects in Africa, because in that way we would create wealth, we would create profit. This inflation that exists here would be controlled because a lot of liquidities would be spent in Africa. So to come back to my key message, tolerance. Tolerance, let us tolerate and let us listen to each other. Let us not imagine that one person alone, or one country alone, has the answer to the woes of the world. This requires discussion, this requires considerable dialogue. In Africa, do you also have the feeling that the world is collapsing? You said that we didn't need monopolies anymore, but we get the impression that the Western world has lost its monopoly situation, that this is the end of U.S. supremacy, and we can see the emergence of other superpowers, such as China, emerging. So who is at the reins? Who is governing the world? If there is no monopoly anymore, where is the architect of this new world? Who is going to build this new world on the ruins of the World Trade Center, on the ruins of the financial crisis? Who is the pilot, so to speak, of the 21st century? Well, I would say the invisible hand of Adam Smith, as a liberal would say. But to be more precise, I would like to share my deepest conviction with you. I think, well, earlier I mentioned how the United States became the biggest economic power in the world, and I said that we were not represented, but we nonetheless accepted the dollar as being the currency for international payments. We accepted the dollar as being the most important currency. A lot of ideas were proposed at the time, but finally we opted for the dollar. And therefore, this enabled the United States to have debt. Because that was because the dollar was the means of payment internationally speaking, and that therefore it was linked to the U.S. deficit. So the United States were therefore an exception to the system. They were the only ones allowed to have painless debt. General de Gaulle wanted to change this at the time, but he was unable to do so. So today, with the collapse of the internal system in the United States, because that's what you have to remember, the dollar has gone down over time, but basically it's the internal financial mechanisms that have led to the internal bankruptcy of the United States. So I believe that the United States are no longer going to be the world leaders from an economic standpoint. As I said, there are a lot of investments, not only in the country, but also outside the country. And that as a result of this very powerful economic position, they have also become political leaders with a great military influence, with a great presence worldwide as well. But where is the American presence in Africa? Europe and France are a lot more present in Africa than the United States. The United States only have embassies in African countries, that's all. What about businesses? The businesses in Africa are mainly European businesses. However, we cannot deny that the United States is indeed a very powerful economic presence and also has a tremendous political influence. But there are new powers as well, China, India, for instance, and we are very good customers of China and India, and we have a program that has totally changed the situation of Senegal in barely 6 months. We have moved from a food-based economy to an economy of abundance, and this is thanks to the fact that India has provided us with equipment at a very preferential rates, and this is really thanks to their contribution that we have managed to move on. So the world is changing in favor of certain powers, amongst which India. India is not just a regional power. Then there is China as well. China has tremendous financial capacity, tremendous technology as well. China is fostering ties with Africa. It is building new relations, new contracts, new forms of investment in Africa that Europe is unable to do. And then we have Brazil as well, building ties with Africa. Now, what about Europe?